Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to our next chapter, that is your capital gains. So we are covering DT in our 50-page summary notes. So capital gains, first you have to understand that is the definition of capital asset. What is a capital asset? Because capital gains or capital loss is only applicable on capital asset. So first it has to be a capital asset and only then can you apply this chapter. So your capital asset is definition under section 214. It includes your property, whether movable or immovable. It includes goldware, securities, bullion, sculpture, jewelry, art, painting, drawing, silver bar, silver coins, virtual digital asset, that is your VDA, and your ULIP. This is an inclusive definition. What all does it not include? It excludes silverware. So if you see, goldware is included, but silverware is excluded. That is, it is not a capital asset. Rural agricultural land, not a capital asset. Gold monetization scheme bond 2015, not a capital asset. Personal movable property, say for example, if you had a car and you sell this car, this will not attract capital gain or capital loss because that is not a capital asset. Raw material, stock in trade, and gold deposit bond 1999, these are not capital assets. Now next is computation of capital gain. How do you compute capital gain? So before you study that, it is important that you study what are the types of capital assets. So our capital assets are bifurcated into three parts. So that is, so basically actually two parts. Your capital asset will either be short term or it will be a long term. Now, capital asset will be STCG, that means short term capital gain. Short term capital gain, if it is held for less than or equal to, that means for a period of 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years or less. If your capital asset is held for a period of 1 year or less, that means inclusive of 1 year. Now, which are these capital assets? Any security other than units in recognized stock exchange, UTI units, mutual fund units, and ZCB, that is your zero coupon bonds. So these four types of capital assets, if held for a period of 1 year or less, which are these four? Any security in recognized stock exchange India other than units. Any security other than units in recognized stock exchange. Then there are two types of units, that is your UTI units and your mutual fund units, which are equity oriented. And last is your zero coupon bond, that is ZCB. If these four capital assets are held for a period of 1 year or less, it will be a short term capital gain. Next is 2 years. Any immovable property or shares of any company. What you have to recognize over here, sir, we had already covered shares. No, over here these are only shares if they are listed in any recognized stock exchange. What about shares that are not listed? So those will come over here, shares of any company. Okay. So, and what if it is listed outside India? Then it will not be covered here, it will be covered here. Okay. So immovable property or shares of any company, if held for a period of 2 years or less, it will be a short term capital gain. That means for it to be a long term capital gain, it has to be held for 2 years and 1 day. And 3 years is any other asset. So all the assets that have not been specified in 1 or 2, it will come under 3. Great. So now that you know the difference between short-term capital gain and long-term capital gain, let's see how the computation of capital gain works. So first you start with FVOC, that is your fair value of consideration. Fair value of consideration less transfer expenses, any expenses that you've incurred for transferring this asset, that you will be subtracting. After subtracting, you will get net sales consideration. From net sales consideration, you subtract your indexed cost of acquisition or cost of improvement. Now, what you have to notice is this indexation is only and only available if it is a long term capital gain. Only and only if it is a long term capital gain will you get the benefit of indexation. So we subtracted that and you will get your long term capital gain or short term capital gain. So what you have to remember is, while calculating short term capital gain, only deduction that will be allowed to you is transfer expenses. But if it is a long term capital asset, you will also get the benefit of indexation. Okay. Now coming to next part, for a few things it might be confusing as to how to determine your cost of acquisition. So cost of acquisition for goodwill, if it is self-generated goodwill, income tax does not assign any value. Therefore, your cost of acquisition of self-generated goodwill is nil. And if you purchase, say for example, if you purchased a business whose net worth is 100, but you've purchased it for 150, that 50 rupees becomes your goodwill. So purchased goodwill will be the price paid. For land or building, for land or building it is a little complicated process, but it is easy. So first you have to see fair market value, FMV or HDV. Fair market value or your stamp duty value, whichever is lower. Fair market value or stamp duty value, whichever is lower. So you've written both of these, whichever is lower becomes your this price. Then you have to compare it with your cost of acquisition. Okay, you compare it with your cost of acquisition and you will see whichever is higher. So fair market value or SDV, whichever is lower, you write that figure that you compare with your cost of acquisition, and then you see whichever is higher, that will be your cost of acquisition. And for all other assets, it will be your cost of acquisition, or if the asset has been purchased before 1st April 2001, in such a case it will be your cost of acquisition or fair market value on 1st April 2001. Fair market value on 1st April 2001, whichever is higher. So if you had purchased it before 1st April 2001, you get this extra benefit of calculating fair market value on 1st April 2001. Now, there are some cases when capital gain is not taxable in the year of transfer. Ideally, capital gain will be taxed in the year that you have transferred your capital asset. But there are some cases where this will not happen. So, when your capital asset has been converted to stock in trade, that means your capital asset, your personal capital asset, you have now brought it into business. That means now it is your stock in trade. So, say for example in previous year 2001 2002, say for example you purchased a capital asset costing 10,000. Now this capital asset you transferred it to your business, that is in previous year 12 and 13. This will be considered as your transfer year, converted it to stock in trade, and at that time the fair market value is 32,000. However, you finally sold this in the year 22-23, that means your previous year. You sold it for 50,000. So, how you have to determine from 10,000 to 32,000, this difference will be taxed under capital gain, and your difference from 32,000 to 50,000, that is your 18,000, will be taxed under PGBP because it is sold under your business. But CG and PGBP both will be taxable in previous year 22-23, that is when the stock in trade has been actually sold. So even though this will be considered, your 12-13 will be considered as a transfer year, we will not charge you tax. We will charge you tax only when you actually sell, because you have not actually received any money. So because you have not actually received any money, therefore we are making this taxable in the year when you actually receive money, that is in the previous year 22-23. Okay, next is other way around. When your stock in trade has been converted to capital asset, that means from business you have now brought it to personal. So same example, previous year 1 to 10,000, 32,000, 50,000, just this time it is different. From stock in trade we are converting it to capital asset, and then capital asset has been sold. So again, stock in trade converted to capital asset, this difference will be taxed as PGBP, and the difference of 50,000 and 32,000 will be taxed as your capital gain. Your PGBP will be become taxable in the previous year 12-13, that is when the stock in trade has been converted over here. You have to remember it is not when it is sold. If it is the other way around, that is when your stock in trade has been converted to capital asset, it will be taxable when it is actually converted to your capital asset. So PGBP will be taxable when converted, and your capital gain will be taxable when it is sold. Okay. Next is in case of compulsory acquisition of assets. So in certain cases, government has to compulsory acquire some assets, your land. Say for example, they are constructing a metro. Now the metro has to go through your land, so they will be purchasing your land. It has to be compulsory acquired. So in such a case, if you receive a one-time payment, the tax year will be the year when the compensation has been received. If you receive a one-time payment, it might be possible that your land has gone today, it has been transferred today, but you get your payment the next year. So only the year when you get the payment will you be taxed for this. So it is the year when the compensation has been received. If you received it in installments, IC stands for initial compensation. Okay, so IC stands for initial compensation and EC stands for enhanced compensation. That is when you go to court and you say that this compensation that they had offered me is not enough. I need extra money. I need more money because I do not think I have been fairly compensated. So your initial compensation will be the year in when the first installment has been received. Say for example, you are about to receive three installments. Your entire three installments will be taxed when you receive your first installment. So here when the first installment has been received, entire tax will be taxable. And in case of enhanced compensation, as and when received, whenever you get the extra money, whenever you get the extra compensation, that will be your tax year. Some points to note: litigation expenses to be subtracted from enhanced compensation for capital gain calculation. That is because you are suing them. You are filing a case in the court. So therefore, any litigation expense that will be allowed to be subtracted. Enhanced compensation received due to interim order. That means if the final order has not been passed, they are passing an interim order. It will be taxed when final order is passed. Okay. So if you receive anything because of an interim order, it will not be taxed. It will be taxed only when the final order has been passed. And last is any interest received on late compensation. Say for example, if they had told you that we will compensate you in 1 year, but they paid it to you in 4 years, so you will be charging them interest for 3 years. So any interest received on late compensation, that interest will be chargeable under EFOS in the year of receipt. EFOS is your income from other sources. In the year of receipt, and you will also get a 50% deduction. Next is your joint development agreement, also called as JDA. So your joint development agreement, what happens, say for example, you are living in a society. Now that society is 50, 60 years old. So a big builder, say for example, Kaltaru comes and says, you give us your flat, you give us your land, we will break the building. We will make huge 30, 50 floors building and we will give you two flats in this. So this is a joint development agreement. In such a case, your year of transfer will be when the property has been transferred to JDA. That is when you give them possession, that yes, you take the house, you break it, you do whatever you want to do. That will be considered as a year of transfer because the asset has actually been transferred. But the year of tax will be when the certificate of completion has been received. That is when Kalpataru or when the bigger builder makes the entire building and hands over you the certificate of completion that I am done from my side. That is the year of taxation. Now your fair value of consideration, whenever you calculate, it will be SDV, that is your stamp duty value on the date of issue of your completion certificate, plus any consideration received in cash. Now what they do, they usually give you a flat in the new building, plus they also give you some compensation, that is say so to compensate you because you will be living in another flat for the time being. So in such a case, both of them have to be added, that is your stamp duty value and any thing received in cash, check, etc. Now what you have to understand is, say for example, this building will take 5 years to make. So if I do not have the patience to wait for 5 years, what do? I sell it in the third year itself. I sell my rights that whenever this building will be completed, this is yours. I sell it to someone else. So if it is transferred before receiving your completion certificate, if I do not wait for the entire period, then tax year over here, if you see, year of tax was when certificate completion certificate is received. But in this case, I will never be receiving the completion certificate. So if transferred before receiving the CC, your tax year will be when the property was transferred to JDA. That means we will go reverse in time. We will file a revised return and that is when this will be taxed. Next is your insurance claim for damaged capital asset. Say for example, your capital asset worth 10 lakh was damaged and you receive an insurance of 8 lakh for compensation. So asset destroyed will be your year of transfer because the asset has been destroyed. That will be considered as a year of transfer. Your claim received, if you receive a claim, that will be your year of tax. Whenever you receive the claim, that will be the year of tax. Now this might be in the form of cash or it might be in the form of assets. If it is in the form of asset, that will be your fair market value of the asset that will be used to calculate. However, if you have not received a claim, if no claim is received, there will be no capital gain, there will be no capital loss. Okay. Next is your section 1037A, that is capital gain exempt for transfer of asset for development of Amravati. So this is a scheme. So for development of Amravati is a place. So if you hand over your assets for development of Amravati, in such a case, what will be exempt and what will be taxable? Any land and building transferred to the land pooling scheme, if you have transferred it to them, this will be exempt. Land pooling ownership certificate transferred by original owner, OG owner. So what happens is, say for example, you had some land and now they want to construct a garden over there. So you give away your land and you receive a land pooling certificate. Now land pooling ownership certificate, if you wait to receive something in return, then it will be exempt. If you sell this certificate also, if your land pooling ownership certificate is sold also, that will also be exempt. What will not be exempt? Land pooling ownership certificate transferred by the second owner. That means the person who purchased this certificate, if he also sells it, that will not be exempt, that will be taxable. Any reconstituted land plot received or transferred within 2 years from end of financial year in which possession is handed over. Say for example, you gave them your land that, sir, yes, you can develop it. They gave this land back to you, that is your reconstituted land. If it is transferred within 2 years from end of financial year in which possession is handed over. Say for example, you did not like what they did to your land, so you sold it. That will also be exempt, but provided you make this decision within 2 years. If you do more than 2 years, then it will become taxable. So if it is done post 2 years, it will become taxable. Okay. Next is the section 47. So certain transactions will not be regarded as a transfer. That means assets are moving between different persons, but we will not regard this as a transfer. And if we don't regard this as a transfer, of course, the question of capital gain does not arise. So distribution on assets on partition of HUF. Distribution of assets on partition of HUF. Say for example, HUF has been broken down. So now these assets are distributed to the members of HUF. This will not be regarded as a transfer. If there is any movement of capital asset between a holding company and a subsidiary company, 100% subsidiary company, what you have to remember, it is a 100% subsidiary company. If there is any capital asset movement from holding to subsidiary or subsidiary to holding, 100% subsidiary company, in such a case it will not be regarded as a transfer. But if within 8 years this capital asset has been converted to stock in trade, or the 100% subsidiary is now no more a 100% subsidiary but maybe a 99% subsidiary, that means if this percentage falls down, if either of these happen, that means either this capital asset is converted to stock in trade or this 100% percentage falls down, in such a case it will be taxable to transferor in previous year in which the asset was transferred. Okay, so till now we were not considering, but if any of these conditions are violated, then we will consider it as a transfer. Next, your capital asset transferred under gift, will or trust. Any amalgamating company transfers asset to the amalgamated company. So say for example, two companies are amalgamating, so they transfer their assets to an amalgamated company. This will not be regarded as a transfer. The same is for demerger company. If a demerged company is transferring its assets to a resulting company, say for example, AV Limited broke down into A and B Limited, A Limited and B Limited, transferred some assets to A Limited, transferred some assets to B Limited, that will not be transfer. Next is transfer of bonds, REIT unit or GDR, that is your section 115 AC, by non-resident to non-resident. This will not be considered as a transfer. Next is your conversion of bond or debenture into shares or debenture. If any, you are converting a bond or debenture into share. Say for a lot of times you have convertible debentures. So if that gets converted into share, it will not be regarded as a transfer. Exchange of gold for electronic gold receipt and vice versa. This is also not a transfer. If you're exchanging your physical gold for electronic gold, it is not a transfer. Firm converted to company. If a partnership firm has been now been converted into a company, so if you see the legal entity is changing, it will not be considered as a transfer. The assets that are transferred will not be considered as a transfer if all the assets and liabilities are transferred. The same shareholder proportion as capital account, same shareholding proportion should be there as it was there in the capital account. And last, partners who are now shareholders, so partners of the firm who are now shareholders, have aggregate 50% voting power. 50% or more voting power should rest with the original partners. And last is your transfer of mutual fund units due to a scheme merger. Say for example, there is a mutual fund manager, has 6 different types of mutual funds. If he merges 3 mutual funds into one type and 3 mutual funds into another type, so if it is due to a scheme merger, this will not be considered as a transfer. Next is your section 50B, that is your slump sale. Very important section. Slump sale, what happens? A lot of assets or a division, say for example a division itself is sold. Now division will have some assets and some liabilities, so in such a case what to do? Slump sale comes into the picture, that is section 50B. So your capital gain will be lump sum consideration, that is your fair value of consideration minus your net worth. Net worth of the division, that is your cost of acquisition. Somewhat same formula, FVOC, that is your fair value of consideration minus your cost of acquisition. Lump sum consideration that you receive for the division minus your net worth. It will be a long term capital gain, LTCG 112, only if undertaking is held for more than 36 months. If you remember, while we were studying types of capital asset, 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year. 3 year is basically 36 months. We did not study anywhere about a division or undertaking being sold, therefore it comes under any other assets, that is your period of 3 years. So LTCG 112 only if undertaking held for a period of more than 36 months. Now how do you calculate your net worth? That is for depreciable assets. For depreciable assets, that is assets which depreciate, it will be WDV as per the Income Tax Act. It will be your calculated WDV. For non-depreciable assets, that is, say for example your land, it will be your book value. And any liabilities also will be book value. So non-depreciable assets and liabilities will be calculated at book value. Your depreciable assets will be WDV as per your Income Tax Act. And when you subtract your liabilities, what you get is your net worth. What you have to remember, very important, no indexation for assets. To confuse you, they will give you indexation. You do not have to consider. There will be no indexation for assets. Depreciated asset value is 0 if 3580 deduction has been taken. If you have taken a 3580 deduction, that is your specified businesses, if you've taken that, your asset value will be considered as 0. Ignore any revaluation of asset. They will give you points separately that asset has been revalued. Do not consider, ignore. So your fair value of consideration. What is your fair value of consideration? That is your FMV of consideration, fair market value as per section 11 UAE. Please read this section also, and there are questions in question bank regarding slump sale. Do solve these. So fair market value of consideration will be monetary plus non-monetary, and fair market value of asset transfer. So for fair value of consideration, you have to do higher of two things, that is what you receive versus what you give. So fair market value of consideration or fair market value of asset transferred, whichever is higher, that will be considered as your fair value of consideration. Next section comes your section 51, that is advance money forfeited. Advance money forfeited, what happens? Say for example, I am buying a house. Now that house is worth 1 crore. I tell them, sir, you book this house, I really like it, I will pay you 50,000 advance today. You hold this house for me for 2 weeks, I will give you the payment. Now after 2 weeks, I tell you, sir, I don't have enough money, so I will not be purchasing this house. Now that 50,000 advance money that I had given, now that is forfeited, that I will not be receiving back. And that person has received 50,000, but he did not make any transfer. In such a case, how is this 50,000 taxed? So if this advance money forfeited has happened before 1st April 2014, if this has happened before 1st April 2014, you will deduct this from cost of acquisition, and that too before indexation. This will happen before indexation. What you realize is, say for example, he had purchased the house only for 10,000. This will become zero because we are doing it before indexation. Okay, and if it is after 1st April 2014, if this incident happened after 1st April 2014, then this advance money that they have received, it will be taxed under EFOS under 56 to 9 by previous owner, should not be deducted. So that, what does this mean? If any advance money has been received by a previous owner, then you need not deduct this amount. Now coming to our main, very important part of this chapter are your three special tax rates, that is your section 112A, 111A and 112 LTCG. So 112A LTCG talks about 10% on excess of 1 lakh. So 112A is long term capital gain. Long term capital gain on what? If it is equity shares of a company that you have held for a period of more than 12 months, you have to remember, if it is 12 months or less, it becomes a short term capital gain. So if equity shares of a company you held for more than 12 months, what you have to remember over here is more than 12 months, and STT has been paid, that is a security transaction tax has been paid on both buying and selling, then it will come under section 112A. Or unit of a equity oriented fund, over here also same, more than 12 months, or unit of a business trust more than 36 months. What you have to remember over here, STT necessary has to be paid only at the time of sale. If you did not pay STT at the time of buying, it is okay. For equity share, however, it is mandatory that it has to be paid at both buying and selling. If it is these assets, then it will be considered as a long-term capital gain under section 112A. Now, how is this taxed? It is taxed at 10%. It is taxed at 10% only on excess of 1 lakh. There will be no indexation. 87A rebate is not allowed. If you remember, while studying rebate, we read that rebate will be allowed against all income except 112A. Now, what will be your cost of acquisition of security if acquired before 1st Feb 2018? So your fair market value as on 31st Jan 2018. So this was an amendment brought by Nirmal Sitaram. So cost of acquisition of security if acquired before 1st Feb 2018, how do you calculate your cost of acquisition? So first you do FMV as on 31st Jan 2018. You compare it with your fair value of consideration or your FMV as on 31st Jan 2018. This is basically the price that you sold it at. Whichever is lower, then you compare that with cost of acquisition. And you see whichever is higher, that will become your cost of acquisition. So fair market value or FVOC, you see both fair market value or FVOC, whichever is lower, and then you compare it with your cost of acquisition, whichever is higher. Now you have to remember that while calculating FMV, if it is listed, then it is time of sale and 31st Jan 18, max trading price 31st Jan 18. FMV of non-listed on 31st Jan 18 will be NAV on 31st Jan 18. Great. So this was your section 112A. Next is your section 111A. That is your short-term capital gain 15%. Now you see it is all similar. Equity share of a company 12 months, unit of equity oriented funds 12 months, unit of business trust 36 months. Over here it is for a period of less than or equal to. So if it is these three securities held for a period of 12 months or 36 months or lesser, and provided your STT has been paid at the time of sale. In such a case, it will be covered under your special tax rate of 111A, taxed at the rate of 15%. What you have to remember, sale of unlisted share will always be capital gain. It will never be a PGBP. It will always be capital gain. Derivative options are always PGBP, and all other short-term capital gain will be taxable at your normal rate. So that means for short-term capital gain, 15% will only and only be applicable if there are these three types of securities, or these less than 12 months or equal to 12 months less than or equal to less than 36 months. Next is your section 112, that is long term capital gain taxed at 20%. Now sir, what's the difference? That long term capital gain was at 10%. Yes. So for listed securities other than units and ZCB, so you have to see which all assets come over here. For listed securities other than units and ZCB, he can pay at 112 at 20%. SSC can pay tax at either of the two options, that is either 10% without indexation or 20% with indexation. Okay, so all your long term capital gains will be taxed at 20%. SEC can pay tax at either of the two options, either you take indexation and you will be taxed at 20%, or you do not take indexation and you will be taxed at 10%. Next is your section 112A, 111A and 112. So what are the rules? So basic exemption utilize. Can my these special incomes utilize my basic exemption, that is your up to 2,50,000 or 3 lakh. So for residents, so for 112A only residents can use it. For 111A and 112, residents and non-residents both can use it. Therefore I have not written anything. Okay, so for 112A only residents can take. For both the others, residents and non-residents, both of them can take. Are chapter 6A deductions available against these special income? No, because these are specially taxed rate income, so no 6A deductions. And do we get a rebate? So as we had studied, there is no rebate under section 112A, but you will get rebate under section 111A and 112. There is no indexation benefit on bonds and debentures. There is an exception, that is your capital indexed or sovereign gold bonds. And next is STT, not to be added to cost, neither to be subtracted from your fair value of consideration. STT is not an expense, it is a tax. So it is neither to be added to cost of acquisition nor it has to be subtracted from your fair value of consideration. Next is your cost of acquisition of asset declared under your income declaration scheme 2016. So if you've declared any new asset, that yes, I had this asset also but I never told you, so in such a case you will be taxed. So there was a special scheme introduced in 2016, that is the income declaration scheme. So your cost of acquisition will be fair market value as on 1st June 2016 if you have paid tax at the rate of 45%. Indexation you will always get from 2016-17 year. Your period of holding will be from 1st June 2016, and your original date, your period of holding will be considered from your original date. If there is evidence of a registered deed, then it will be considered from your original date. What you have to remember in this case is it is taxed at 45% and FMV you have to take as on 1st June 2016. Then there is your new section introduced, that is your 50AA market linked debenture. This new section has been introduced in this Finance Act. So short term capital gain will be charged in case of mutual fund whose maximum 35% is in equity, who invest in max to max 35% of their funds in equity, or market linked debenture purchased after 1st April 2023. So this mutual fund or market linked debenture has to be purchased after 1st April 2023, and if it is a mutual fund, maximum 35% only can be invested in equity. In such a case, your short term capital gain will be your fair value of consideration minus your cost of acquisition minus any expenses, and of course your STT over here is also not deductible. Okay, so coming to our last part of the chapter is how to calculate your fair value of consideration. So we already studied those three cases where we had done how to calculate your cost of acquisition. This is for your fair value of consideration. So any asset transferred by person to a firm, that means if he is entering into a firm, so as a future partner, he is, instead of making payment as contribution to capital, he is transferring any asset. So in such a case, the fair value of consideration will be the amount recorded in the books of account, because that is actually a transfer of asset. Now what will be the fair value of consideration? It will be what amount has been recorded in the books of accounts of the partnership firm. Next is any capital asset transferred by a firm to partner. This is reverse. The firm is now being dissoluted, so it is being transferred to partners. So this comes under section 9b. So your fair value of consideration will be the fair market value of asset. Any money or capital asset given to a partner by firm, that is under reconstitution, it will be the fair market value of asset minus the capital balance of the partner. Any immovable property whose HDV is greater than 110% of the consideration. If say for example, I am transferring a property for 100 rupees, whose stamp duty value say for example 130 rupees. In such a case, the fair value of consideration will be considered as 130 rupees, because they will say that sir, you have sold your property for lesser price. Therefore, immovable property whose stamp duty value is more than 110% of the consideration, in such a case your FVOC will become your stamp duty value. And same if immovable property whose stamp duty value is less than or equal to 110% of consideration, that means if say for example I sold a property for 100 rupees and the stamp duty value is 110 rupees, exact 110 rupees, that is exactly 110% of consideration. In such a case, the fair value of consideration will be the consideration amount, that is 100 rupees only, even though my SDV is 110. But because it is within the limit of 100 and 110, therefore 100 will be considered. Next is transfer of any unquoted share, it will be fair market value of share. Exchange of assets will be fair market value of asset received. So you are calculating fair value of consideration for the asset that you have given, but how are you calculating that? You are calculating that using fair market value of asset that you have received. If consideration is not determinable, it will be fair market value of asset transferred. Right. So this 110% rule that we had studied, there is a additional thing that you have to consider. SEC may claim that the stamp duty value is actually much more than the fair market value. Now say for example your stamp duty value is calculated based on per square feet. So if the rate of per square feet is say for example 5000 rupees, but the thing is your house faces a gutter, because of which the value that you are receiving out of this house is less than the stamp duty value. So SSE may claim that the stamp duty value is actually much more than the fair market value, and I have sold my house for a fair market price. In such a case, valuation officer shall determine the fair market value. So if the SDV actually comes out to be less than the fair market value, we will consider that your fair value of consideration will be your SDV. That means if your SDV comes less than the fair market value, it will be your SDV. If your FMV, if your consideration is less than your fair market value, say for example you sold the house for 100 rupees, your fair market value was 120 rupees and your stamp duty value was 170 rupees. In such a case, your fair value of consideration will be considered as 120 rupees. Okay. And next is if your fair market value is less than the consideration. If your fair market value, say for example, your fair market value is 120 rupees, and if your consideration is 150 rupees, then in such a case, no problem, your consideration 150 rupees will be considered as your fair value of consideration. Okay, I hope this is clear. And coming to your last part, that is your section 54. So in this section certain assets are transferred and you get a exemption from capital gain if you purchase another type of capital assets. So some amounts have been specified and etc. So you can type in your email ID in the comment section and you will get these notes. So you can look at this table that I have prepared. Not a very complicated one, but of course too much to learn at once. So I will not be discussing this, and you can study this using the notes. And with this we are done with capital gains.